Hey everybody, Matt here with Imagine Then Make. Thanks for stopping by. This video is part 5 of my series on learning how to program in Python for complete beginners. If you missed any of the other episodes, check the video description for some links. All right, so in previous episodes, we looked at the print statement, we looked at the input statement. Now we're going to expand our capabilities a little bit more, and we're going to look at generating random numbers. And the reason we want to do that is because my short-term end goal here is to have enough tools to build a very simple guess the number type game. All right, so I've already started to write some code to try and show you how to generate random numbers, and here it is right here. I've only got a few lines here. It's very short. First line is a comment. I talked about that in a previous video. On line number 3, I have a new command for you that we haven't talked about. It's called import, and then there's a space and the word random. So what the import command does, the import is actually a keyword. Let me show you that. In an earlier video, I think video number 1, we were looking at the interactive help utility that comes with Python. So all I did was start the Python interpreter by clicking on it. It's python.exe, and I'm going to type in help, which is what we did in the first video, and then it instructs me to type help and open and close parentheses, and then it instructs me to type in modules, keywords, symbols, or topics. I think we did that last time. So this time, if I type in keywords, and then there is a list here that gets generated, and lo and behold, there is the word import. So import is a keyword to be used by the Python interpreter. And the other thing we're going to do is type in the word modules. Again, I think we did this in video number 1. This takes a few seconds because it's kind of a long list. But here's a list of all the modules that are available in the standard Python installation, which you and I have done. And what's in a module is code that's been pre-written by somebody else and packaged in something called a module. If we want to use that code in our own programs, what we have to do is import the module. Okay, so that's what this command does. It imports a module called random. So if we scroll down this list, and lo and behold, there is the random module name. Okay, so Python is extremely powerful because you have access to all kinds of code right out of the gate. Okay, so we're going to use random to learn how to generate some random numbers. And then in the future, I believe I mentioned in an earlier video that I was interested in learning how to make graphical user interfaces for my Python applications. And I'll probably start with at least this module, tkinter, or tkinter, however you say it. Still don't know how. And I also mentioned in an earlier video that I wanted to experiment with drawing animated lines on the screen, and the module I'll be using for that in an upcoming video is called Turtle. So right out of the gate, very early on in my Python journey, there's the random module that we're going to play with today. And in the not too distant future, I'll be playing with the Turtle module. That'll probably come first. And then at some point down the road, tkinter. And that's just 3 out of, you see, a big long list of modules that are available. Okay, so that's what this command import random does. It imports or makes available the random module. Now, what's inside the random module is a whole bunch of functions. Some people call them methods. It's kind of beyond the scope of this video to dive too deeply into that. Suffice it to say that Python is indeed an object-oriented language, which is complicated for beginners, I think, to understand, so we won't even go there. But if you see that or read that or hear that, you've heard it here also. Okay, so import random. So what functions are inside of random that you could use to in your own programs once you import or gain access to the random module? That's a really valid question. And I know when I first started using Python, it was like, okay, I see all these modules are available. I see a big long list, but how do I know what's inside the modules? What methods or functions are inside those modules that I want to know about, because maybe I can use them to complete my program, my application. Maybe it's a tool I can use. Okay, so there is the Python documentation, and honestly, I have found the documentation from Python to be a bit difficult for a beginner such as myself, perhaps as well, you as well. I found the official documentation a bit difficult to understand and to make quick use of it. I think it requires a higher level of understanding of Python and how it's put together, all the bits and pieces, and how everything works. I think you have to have a higher level understanding of that in order to really utilize, read and understand, and then utilize the official Python documentation. However, all is not lost. Python is extremely popular all around the world, so there are tons and tons of resources that are aimed at beginners. And there's one here that I'd like to refer you to. I've used this often. We're going to use it today. This is a website called w3schools.com. Okay, so it is very comprehensive. It covers all kinds of programming languages, not the least of which is Python. So I'm on their homepage right now. If I click on Python, then there's a whole bunch of stuff regarding Python. Okay, and also there's a search box. So if I click in here and just type in random, okay, and then this one right here, Python random module from the W3 schools, Python module underscore random. So let's click on that, and boom, inside the random module are all these methods. You can also consider them functions. If you don't know what that means, it just means it's a block of a method, or a function is a block of pre-written code which you can use. Okay, so here's a list of all the methods or functions that are inside of the random module written for Python. And you can see there's a whole bunch of them here. And all of these are links, so you can click on them to get more information. So if I go back to my code right here, oops. Okay, so I talked about the import random, and now we're exploring what's inside of the random module. And on the W3 schools, there's a list right here. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now in my command here, well, let me back up and say, once again, repeat, because it's worth repeating. A good programmer is essentially a problem solver. So the problem I have right now when in generating this little file is I want to generate a random number, not just any number, but an integer, meaning a whole number, no decimal points. Okay, not a floating point number, but an integer, a whole number. I want to generate a random number, whole number, integer, between the values of 1 and 10 inclusive. So any number in between 1 and 10, including 1 or 10. Okay, and then I want to print that number. So there is a particular method or function in the random module, and let's see, it is right here. It's called randint. And the description is returns a random number between the given range. So it's a link. Let's click on it. Returns a number. So here's an example right off the bat. I like this. So right off the bat, I can see an example of actually how to use it. So here's my import. Here's the import random command. looks amazingly like, how about exactly like, the command that I've used in my code, import space random. Okay, and then in the schools example, they have a print statement, and inside the parentheses, they have an expression, and this is something we haven't talked about before. So we want to actually be able to run the randint method or function, which is inside the random module, and we want to give these parameters or arguments to the randint function. So by reading the description, I think you can understand what it's doing. So it's using 3 as the lowest number and 9 as the biggest number. Okay, so this expression, when it gets evaluated, is going to return a whole number, an integer, between the values of 3 and 9 inclusive. And then that expression, whatever number the software comes up with, is going to get passed to the print statement, and it's going to print it to the screen. In my program, I use basically the same command, only my limits are a little different. I want to generate a number between 1 and 10 inclusive, an integer, and I'm setting it equal to a variable, and then I'm printing the variable. Okay, so let's see if we can run this. Okay. Let's just try and move the screens around a little bit, so hopefully it will be easily seen by the camera. Okay, so you saw what I did. I just run module. And what it did is it picked the number 6. If I run it again, oh, it picked 6 again. Let's try it again. Oh. Okay, so we got 3 6s in a row. I don't know. Then it picked 9. Let's just do this for fun. That time it picked an 8. And there's the number 1. And just one more time. Okay, and this time it picked 4. So it appears to be working, right? So, but if you were to just look at this, you might say, well, what does that number represent? So I should really put some more text in the print statement to identify what that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out this line by just putting a pound sign in front of it. And I'm going to copy, because I had written this before. So I'm just going to copy this and put this right here. Going to remove the comment symbol. And so now I'm going to try and run the same exact program, only this time the output should include random, the text random number, a colon, a space, and then a number. So if I run this, I'm going to save it and run it. What the interpreter does is it gives me an error. A little bit, let me erase it. And so the error is, can only concatenate string data, not int, to a string. So this is a little complicated and it may be new to any beginner. So let me take a second to explain this. So in the print statement right here, inside the quotes, that is considered text, right? We talked about that earlier. And text, another name for text is string data. I don't know where the name comes from, but it's a kind of data that's made up of text. So, and string gets abbreviated as str, okay? And then there's also numbers, right? That's a different kind of data because text are strings and numbers are numbers, okay? And they can be integers, whole numbers, they can be floating point numbers, okay? So when it generates, when the random number generator, when the rand_int function generates a number, that truly is a number. It's not text that looks like a number. Okay, so in this print statement right here, I'm trying to take some text inside the quote marks and then add to it the text that represents the number. But right here, this num variable is filled with a number, not text. So I'm trying to concatenate or add together, combine, a string variable, a string data with integer data, and the two don't match. So that's what this error is saying. Can only concatenate string to string. So now the next programming problem I have to solve is, how do I take a number and convert it from a number to a string, text that looks like that number? Okay, so if I open the window a little bit here, I can see that I've solved the problem before starting the video. So I'm going to take this line and I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to take away the comment. I'm going to add another comment right here. So now it will run this command, and this command. It'll skip the comments, as we talked about before. Okay. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to see. Wants me to save it, and I move this up. I run it. Okay. So now when I restarted the program, the shell came up, the idle shell. I can look at the output, and it printed random number colon space and then the string value for the number 8, which is what the random int function returned. Okay, so in order to convert the number, which is an integer, to a string, I use this other function built into Python, of course, that takes a number, in this case an integer, and converts it to a string. So now I have a string, I have text, right? I have a string, and I want to add some more text, also a string. So string here, now they match. Now there's no error. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So now we know how to generate random numbers. We could change, let's leave that one, and just thinking ahead to games, like a 6-sided die, right, used in all kinds of games, has numbers 1 through 6. There's 6 sides in the cube, right? So if I generate a random number between 1 and 6 inclusive, that would be similar to rolling a single die, okay? Okay, so now if I save this and I run it, okay, so this time it got the number 2. If I run it again, got the number 1. If I run it again, it gets 5, okay? So hopefully you see how this works, and we're going to use this code, or code very similar, when we build the very simple guess the number game in an upcoming video. Okay, there's only one other thing that I can think of that I want to touch on, and you may have kind of noticed this already, especially if you're writing your own code. So here we've been executing all of these programs, right? And it's kind of filling up this window. And there's no real way to clear out all this stuff. So the easiest thing to do, if that's something you want a fresh window with nothing in it, just close the window. I hit the little X. Now I'm going to run and see it starts with a fresh window. None of the other stuff remains. And now I just have the output from my program as the only output that's listed in the window. So that might be helpful too as you're writing your own programs and trying to figure out how to solve your own problems. Okay, so we'll just do one more. We'll change it from 10 to 100. Okay, and we will save it. Yes, I want to replace it. And now we're going to run in a new instance of the idle shell. And here it picked the number 97. If I do it again, 39, and so on. Again, if I want to start with a fresh screen, just close that window and run it again. And this time it picked 33. Okay, so that's how you generate integers between range, your lowest number and your highest value that you want, low number and high number. And we're going to use that, like I said, in a very simple game in an upcoming video.